It's October 6th, and I had a little bit of a meltdown yesterday. I have a lot of things going on right now, and some things came up unexpectedly, so there has been a lot of stress, and actually I am sure that I could have made a video clip. However, I was too stressed out. I was busy doing other things, so I didn't feel like talking, I guess. I felt like writing more than talking, so that's what I did. However, as to how I would have greeted somebody in general had somebody been around at that time, I mean, it wouldn't have been any different than I am now. But I was venting a little bit through my writing. All that to say, I believe I left off, I checked a little bit, and I left off by talking about this yeast thing, which is really unpleasant to talk about, and not something I would really share publicly with anyone. And I want to clarify something, because in case I'm misunderstood or somebody misinterprets what I was saying, I have put information online on my blog with photographs showing where this thrush, it's actually thrush, and thrush is different from yeast in the sense of, I mean, they're kind of the same thing, but it's a little bit different in the sense that you get thrush from breastfeeding. I mean, that's one way that you can get that. It's not like a woman's yeast infection where women go to the store and get a preparation, or they have to go to the doctor to take care of it. It's something that's very common with women who are nursing their children. And that's what I was doing, and that is the only place that I get this rash that I was describing. And I've taken photos of it. I didn't want to do that publicly either, but I thought I have been discredited so much with people who claim that some of these things have never happened to me. I decided to go ahead and get some documentation online, just in case it possibly helped somebody who might be interested in taking me a little more seriously, to see that I'm not exaggerating, and that I've been telling the truth, and my perception is accurate as well. I basically have it just underneath my chest area, under the bra line, and where I still have the rash is where, well, I won't get into why it is where it was, but basically it was from nursing. And then the other area was an area that got sort of a rash, but it was also through, I guess, the systemic yeast, like the variety that you get through nursing, and it's never changed. It's always been that same, it's been the same thing. I mean, I never got like an internal women's yeast infection. I never had it internally. It's always been sort of an isolated rash problem associated with that. But it was impossible to cure and treat, and it got so bad that all of the nursing specialists believed, they all concluded that it was systemic for both me and my son. And that's why they had told me to get a treatment for systemic, an antibiotic or some kind of a treatment for a systemic infection. However, that ended up turning into sort of a weird situation where I was being kind of blacklisted I was being slandered, I think, as possibly having AIDS around that time in Washington. So on top of everything else that I was going through, including trying to get a lawsuit for medical malpractice and combating a lot of various things at the same time and being tortured, because that was just sort of the onset of that. In addition to all those things, I was, I think, being possibly defamed to some clinics, or it was being suggested that I had AIDS, because I was talking about how I wasn't treated for this systemic yeast infection, and since a lot of people who have AIDS tend to have that concurrently with their AIDS, I actually, I mean, I don't know if this one clinic in Seattle was just trying to be malicious, or if it was a result of defamation of some kind, but I called a clinic, or a hospital, like a whole system, a hospital system in Seattle at one point, and asked if they could get me in for an appointment, because I was trying to get my son and myself in still for regular care at the time. And they said, we can transfer you to the AIDS department. I mean, I had a few people maliciously in through the hospital system trying to transfer me at several different hospitals to AIDS department, and I don't have AIDS. You have to have, I mean, unless somebody catches it much later, you typically have a precursor sign of like HIV, and then it goes into AIDS. And I have always been tested for pretty much everything and never had anything of any kind. In addition to that, I never was without any kind form of, I didn't believe in oral birth control for myself, because I don't like how it changes a woman's body chemistry. And I personally believe that it has something to do with potentially causing problems with fertility down the road. So that has never been an option that I've liked. And most of the time, you know, I always hoped that I'd be celibate and then get married to someone great, and that would take care of that. But it doesn't always happen that way. And I'm not perfect. And so anyway, my form of birth control has always been condom, without any exception. Even with my fiance, the entire time I was with him, every single time. So there were only a couple cases or situations or times when that did not happen, and that was when I got pregnant. Basically, the maybe 5 times in my life that I did not use birth control, I was pregnant instantly. I've heard that everyone in my family, the women, are very fertile, and I believe that's true for me as well. So there's really no potential time that I could have gotten AIDS either. But people were passing that idea around, and I wasn't sure, again, if it was a rumor that was believed or if it was malicious. It seemed to be maybe at least a combination, because, or at least a little bit of malice, because when I'm asking to be transferred to a doctor and they keep trying to transfer me to an AIDS specialist, I think that that's sort of a telltale sign of maybe a small problem there. And again, I had already been tested, and I did not have that. But that was still somehow circulating, or I was being harassed with it. Eventually that changed, and I didn't. Later, doctors, I mean, on the East Coast, they did blood samples and did different tests, and I wasn't harassed in the same way. It was sort of thrown out of the water, and it wasn't something that people were trying to bring up as a reason to refuse, providing an opening for me and my son to have health care. And I haven't had a problem with anyone accusing me of that to this day. But I just thought, I mean, all that to say, I thought, well, since I'm talking about it a little bit in an online video clip, I should clarify what form of thrush this was, because there are a lot of assumptions about yeast infections. I'm stalling a little bit and having a harder time talking right now because there are some things going on right now. And basically, I believe technology, because I've described the benign fasciculations that have been targeted before at my lower legs and my feet when I sleep at night. And ever since I turned on this cam this evening, it has been entirely in my chest region, around from pretty much from my neck to my bra line, and then from all the way across from side to side, that entire section of my skin right now is twitching, and there is absolutely no reason why. I don't even think there's a physical health condition that causes twitching in a certain rectangular patch of skin across your chest. But that's what's being done to me right now, and was done as soon as I started talking and made it more difficult for me to talk and to sound normal. And they just stopped doing it. And now I'm not saying as much, and they just started again, actually. So I have muscle contractions going on right now in my skin, and I don't know if the military thinks that they're going to get some kind of documentation for their research. Probably that has something to do with it. And I'm going to try a couple things real quick, and I'll be right back. Basically, I'm not in front of any kind of technology in my house right now, except for my laptop. My laptop was right in front of me, and then the camcorder is up a little bit higher in front of me. And I have two windows in front of me as well, and I'm facing a corner. But aside from that, I basically just I didn't do anything just now, but move my laptop around a little bit. What I was saying, I think I was talking about Alvaro. And basically I was talking about having the thrush infection that Dr. Butler didn't treat, and how it was so ironic that that was disappearing and I wasn't having the symptoms that I would have if I was not being medicated. And as I say, I found out that Toronto, Canada and the US were doing joint research programs